Hey everyone, it's Dr. Rick, and today's tutorial is on coronavirus and how to beat this thing. So I have a previous video as far as virus gone viral, so check it out down below. If this is the first time you're finding me, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and then the notification bell to find out when I do new videos. So, I had to gown. Now this is not a PPE, personal protection equipment. This is an N95, so if you can get this mask anywhere, that would be cool. N95, right there. So the problem is, can't find this anywhere. I have this at the office because it's protocol at this point in time to mask up and put on PPEs for anybody that's suspicious as far as recent travel to China and or lower respiratory tract symptoms, fever, chills, and or exposure to somebody with documented coronavirus positive testing. This is not PPE. I don't have anything for that just yet. Hopefully the office is going to get something, but now I'm going to have to take a shower in my garage before I step into the house. So it is here already. In fact, the problem I see with my patients, if you're my patient, then we'll be fine. Most of us will do fine. You might get a little bit of a fever, chill, a cough, but for the most part, I think we'll be okay. The problem is the 80-year-olds, the 70-year-olds or 60-year-olds with a lot of medical disease, the smokers, the COPDers. This virus has an affinity for ACE2, or a little receptor in the bronchial lining, the lung lining. So if you have an immunocompromised state, or you're on an anti-rheumatology or rheumatoid arthritis medicine, psoriatic arthritis medicine, Crohn's disease medicine, it's going to lower your immune system. You might not be able to fight. And thus far, there's no medicines to kill this. I think somebody mentioned chloroquine at one point and maybe an HIV drug, but that's not documented yet. So this is how, and there's only about 5 in Illinois. There's one more found today. So this is the Worldometer, if you can see it. Pretty good website to track. But in Illinois today, March 5th, Cook County resident that came from Italy. And he's being hospitalized and reverse isolation rush. We also have 4 others. One was taking care of, the first one was January 24th. She was taking care of her husband in China. The second caught the disease while in China. That was January 24th and January 30th. And then we jump over to February 29th for the third case. Doesn't say, just says husband, 70 years old. Then March 2nd, wife, 70s. The March 5th was a 20-year-old or so that came from Italy. And northern Italy's having a really heavy outbreak. If you go to Johns Hopkins website, Johns Hopkins has a pretty good, Hopkins has a pretty good daily update. So far, 97,000 cases, 53,000 recovered, and total deaths, 3,300. So you can see here, the bloom of red is in China. But if you go to North America, you have another bloom. North America has a bloom in Seattle, and they're thinking in Seattle it's been going on for a while. Now they're talking about, I think it's subtypes, so variations to the virus's DNA. And Los Angeles, California is a hotbed too. New York, Toronto, Chicago is a small dot. But here's the thing. In Chicago, there's supposed to be testing. In the U.S., they've done a couple hundred tests. And that's appalling. A couple hundred tests compared to like South Korea, or China did like 1.5 million tests. South Korea, last I saw, was like 100,000. And a couple hundred. The CDC is supposed to release more testing by next week. I think they said 1 million test kits or 500,000 test kits, which is cool. But so we have to understand, if you understand the virus's behavior, you can see and maybe work on containing the virus. But obviously China they tried to contain it, they didn't, because that's why it's around the world. As far as I'm concerned, it's a pandemic. It's kind of like pre-diabetes. If you're obese and you have pre-diabetes, as far as I'm concerned, you have diabetes. I mean, what's the difference? The treatment's still the same. Exercise, diet, nutrition change, maybe a couple medicines. So as far as pandemic versus epidemic, it's already in the United States. There's 5 cases in Illinois, and I'm trying to predict for my guys what to do. And so there's a couple things that have been done over and over again, or repeated over and over again. That's the doubling time. Doubling time for the virus is supposed to be like 6.5 days. That means the time it takes for one person to be passing on to another person. Incubation, more or less. Incubation time is about 14 to 24 days. I think hard and fast rule is 14 days, 2 weeks. That's why isolation's for 2 weeks. So those folks in Illinois that got positive exposure, and the workers that came in contact with those 5, or not the workers, but anybody, family members, people that drove them to the hospital, people in the hospital, but hopefully in the hospital, they're containing it just by using PPE, hand washing, and social distancing. But incubation is about 2 weeks. But you will see, as that next case comes up, you'll see that doubling time, and the incubation will stay the same, but you'll see more cases evolve because of the doubling time. Something called the R0 is about 2 to 3. So R0 is how many people the index person in Illinois will spread to. And if you have one person that has contact, like that first person, that lady that was taking care of her husband in China on, January 29th? So there should be 3 other people connected with her that blossom in the next 2 weeks, in the 2 weeks. So that should be now. Now the problem is, again, the testing. And the problem is also that the people that were taking care of that lady on January 29th or hanging out with her, they might not have full-blown symptoms. We're supposed to be tracking it with testing, but there's no testing. Well, at least it's very hard to do a test in Illinois. I think there is a doctor in New York that went on CNN and said he is at one of the busiest hospitals in the nation, and it was very, very hard to get a test done. And he's at the front lines of containment. So I can't imagine the frustration that the ER docs have when they have a whole bunch of suspected patients and they can't even test them. What are you supposed to do? So that is going to be a problem, because we won't be able to find how many people blossom. 2 to 3 patients will get it from the index patient, the lady on the 29th. And those 2 to 3 that get positive will pass it on to another 2 to 3. And about every 7 to 14 days. So you can see how I put down here, logarithmically, this thing will increase. So this is the amount of cases, this is time. This should be hash marked at 2 weeks at a time, but I didn't do that. So you'll see increase, 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 and then suddenly when it goes from, say, 5, and those 5 infect 2 to 3 others, there'll be 15 in about 2 weeks. Then the 15 infect another 3, and it'll keep on going, and then suddenly it'll accelerate, where it takes off, kind of like what happened in South Korea. You had a 5, I think there were 5 about the end of January, beginning of February, and now there's like 2,000. And the index person supposedly was that lady or somebody in a church, I believe. So that has doubled within a month to 2,000. But South Korea, to their applause, I mean, they're doing a great job, so I had to applaud them. They're testing a lot of people. So they're testing, getting positive confirmation, and confining. When you can confine the disease, then you can usually burn it out. So if you get all those people in one place, don't, social isolation, it's a reverse airflow isolation in hospital, but sometimes you can do home isolation. If you can get them all in one place and not spread, then the R0 value goes down. When it goes to 1, because you're just isolating it, or containing it, I think that is going to be a good thing. In Britain, I think they went from containment to delay because they couldn't contain it anymore. Now they just want to slow it down a little bit. If you can slow it down the spread, you'll have less disease, less death. And the mortality rate at this point in time, first, the mortality rate, it was coming out of China with the statistics being like 2 to 3, which nobody trusted that. But now we're getting mortality rates from around the world, which I think are fair, 3.4%. So if you have a mortality rate of 3.4%, that means out of 100 people, you'll have 3.4 deaths. Or you can figure out the math there. So what am I doing this for? I want to be able to get my patients to know what to do. I don't want to be an alarmist. But I think whether it's coronavirus or influenza, and influenza, I think this last 12 months has already killed 100,000, or is it 10,000? But it has really shadowed what coronavirus is doing. But corona, 3.4% mortality rate is more deadly. I think the influenza virus is a mortality rate of 0.1, if I'm not mistaken. SARS or MERS, I don't remember which one, was like 10%. I think it was SARS was 10% when it came out. So it means out of 100 people, 10 would die. So it's not that bad. The young people should do fine. I say young people, I'm not young, I'm 57, but young people should do fine with good immunity. Kids are not protected. They can get infected. I think China had, I've got a study here somewhere. China had a couple of cases. I don't know where that study went. But in infants 1 year of age or around 1 year of age, they had a handful, but they did not die, supposedly. So I think if we can just be hopefully avoiding large social gatherings, and going to church on Sunday is a social gathering. I pointed it out in my virus gone viral video, that if you're in church and you have somebody coughing behind you or next to you, hey, I'd move, just like a movie theater. I'd move out of the way of the droplet spread. So when an average human coughs, I can spread bacteria and virus particles and just droplets of saliva or mucus or just body fluids from that cough about 2 meters. I've got a pretty good lung. So the average cough is a reaction that the body has, and it's very well done to get bacteria out. But unfortunately, anybody in that spread is going to, if they're taking a deep breath at the same time, is going to inhale it immediately. And again, coronavirus or COVID-19 has an affinity for lung tissue, specifically the ACE2 receptor. But if you get it and you don't inhale and you hold your breath, and you just get on your face, if you wash it off, maybe you'll be okay. But maybe not, because it has been transmitted through mucous membrane too, or at least thought to be transmitted through mucous membrane. So that's why using a standard mask like this will probably stop me from spreading it. If I if I cough, it'll go out. So if I use a mask like this, you can see how it's kind of open on the side and it's not a good seal here. So it's not that strong. And it'll stop me from accelerating the droplets. But if I use this to hopefully get protection, I won't, because if droplets are coming this way, they'll seep in through the crevices. So the one good thing with this kind of a mask is if you wear it, two things, not one, two. Number one, if I'm wearing this, and it is a little bit uncomfortable to breathe in this, but you should try wearing the N95 mask. It's really tight. I got just from wearing it for about 15 minutes with my patient, I got a nice red ring on my face. But this also reminds me not to touch my face. I have a bad habit of touching my face, touching my hair. I'm going like this, going like this. So if I come in contact with the keyboard and supposedly the droplet spread on a doorknob in China was positive for coronavirus 5 days after the last patient left that room. Unless the patient left the room the night before and didn't tell anybody and handled the door. But 5 days, that means theoretically, and again, the information is kind of loose, but theoretically, if you touch, if I touch a doorknob in a bathroom and somebody just came in and coughed on it 5 hours ago, I can still give it to myself by rubbing my eyes or touching something else. Eating, preparing food for my kid. So you have to, this reminds you at least to stop touching your face and reminds you to wash your hands. And when you wash your hands, by the way, it has to be I usually say 2 Hail Marys. If you don't do the Hail Mary, do 2 Happy Birthday songs. And you just get soap and water. You keep on using friction and soap and water to get any, hopefully mobilize, get any crap that's on your hands off, microscopically. So you usually have to do fingers, you gotta do back of the hands, you gotta do between the fingers. And sometimes if you're really good, like what we do in surgery, you gotta scrub, there's no way to scrub with a brush, but you gotta scrub underneath the nails. And then wash off. So when you wash off, most important, people just dry off with either a towel that they precisely get out of the towel dispenser, or they use hands with the infrareds. But the problem is, once you're dried off and you open the door, the handle, I've seen some guys leave straight from the potty or the stall where they poop and go straight out the door. I remember seeing somebody in a Chinese restaurant, nothing against Chinese restaurants, but I was like, oh, we left. My wife and my kids left that place. But the cook went from bathroom, he peed, but he went straight to the door and left. And he probably went back to work. And I'm like, oh. So, and guys are untidy. So that's why sometimes I'll use my shirt and open the door, but then whatever I touch on the shirt, it probably will carry bacteria or fecal material. Or sometimes I will use it's winter gloves time still, so I use my winter gloves and just wear these all the time. So in case you run into somebody, hey, what's up, fist bump, hey, how you doing, with the right hand. So if you get into a situation where you can't avoid, let me just take this off, can't avoid shaking somebody's hand, you got gloves on, but the problem with the gloves is your gloves contain a whole bunch of bacteria. So when you take these off, you have to try to take them off without touching the front. So it's usually going to be like this and that. So now technically my hand touched the glove, so I have to wash my hands. And I know I'm getting a little obsessive compulsive, but this is what we do in the clinic, and knock on wood, I haven't come down with influenza in 5 years. Maybe it's also because I take astragalus. So shout out to Now Foods. I bought this on my own. I didn't get it for free, but I take astragalus in my video, Cold and Flu Herbals. I take astragalus, butterbur, quercetin, and sometimes red reishi mushroom, or I use a combination of the 3. When I get exposed to infection, I'm usually good in about 3 days. But I think if you're healthy, you usually can get your immunity to fight faster. I also use CBD. So this is pretty good. I'm going to go get myself, I ran out of zinc. I'm going to get myself zinc. I also take high dose vitamin D. For the time being, I'm going to go 10,000 a day. You have to be careful because vitamin D is fat soluble and it can sit in your fat and you can absorb a lot. So you have to be careful it doesn't go too toxic, especially for my guys who have problems with their kidneys. So those are my 3 things that I'm using excessively in this next couple months. I have a feeling it's probably going to find, you're going to have big numbers double by about 2 months from now. Not double, but get really high and fast in about 2 months. Unfortunately, it'll be just in time for summer. So the summer fests, I don't know. I'm supposed to take my friend Eddie down to St. Patty's Day and walk 2 miles with him. He's the guy I walked with last year. I am having my reservations because, well, you're really supposed to have social isolation. And I think in a event where it's run outside, you're not going to be high-fiving everybody. Everyone's going to be cold. But those places you go to, the parking attendant, the place where you pay for the parking tickets, the doors, if you have to sign a waiver, or when you get to the race, you're going to have a whole bunch of people that you don't know touch that same thing. So you got to be careful. And to get back to the other things that I do, I always carry this around now. So usually when I go to Mariano's and sometimes Jewel Lasco, the carts that you push, number one, I pull the cart from the front because I hope nobody touches, but they sometimes run out of wipes. And so it's nice to have this. It's also nice to have tissues just in case, and hand sanitizer. Now, I wanted to show you this thing. This is a printout that shows from the Environmental Protection Agency a couple of things that have been, well, you can probably, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but you can see for yourself a couple of products that have been approved by the EPA to have killed SARS in the past. So a lot of Clorox, Lonza. There's a couple different things, so check out that. You can get it online. I got it on the CDC's website. And the CDC's got a pretty decent website. And so you can check out CDC. You can see the updates that it's posting for the United States. Here so far is the United States. It says public places that states that have been testing and states that are in the process of testing. And Illinois is testing, but I mean, where are these test kits? I don't know where they are. Maybe the ER and the immediate care is more well versed with that. I don't have anything. We're supposed to be the spillover. If the doctor's offices are supposed to be the spillover after the hospital gets clogged up, I need more. So maybe they're getting diverted. They probably are to the most important places. But again, if you wait till the virus and the outbreak has lost or broken confinement, you're going to be chasing this thing. You can't chase it, you have to get in front of it. And until we see and track the speed that this thing is spreading, if you try to avoid big social gatherings, I think it'd be important. And you can't just say, oh, he's coughing and he's not. I'll hang out with the non-coughing guy. Because of the incubation period of 2 weeks, the non-coughing guy can have it if they came from Wuhan, if they came in contact with somebody positive, and if they have upper or lower respiratory tract symptoms. So if they are really like ARDS or acute respiratory distress syndrome, then they'll, in the hospitals, I mean, you and I won't see that, but in the hospitals, they'll test immediately. So hopefully we'll get through this. Don't forget, there is no vaccination yet, but for influenza, there is a shot. I posted once a long time ago my reaction I got with my influenza shot. And so you have to make a decision, but I think it's an important thing for those who are worried, immunocompromised, extremes of age, respiratory tract problems, to get your shots. As far as kids, I know moms certain moms try to avoid vaccinations altogether, but again, there's a debate on that. School systems so far have been closed down, but if it gets from containment to delay, Italy's already closed down colleges and universities for 2 weeks, I think. So they're doing a pretty decent job because it's really spreading in northern Italy down. And again, the guy that was positive, the 20-year-old that was positive just today out of O'Hare, he came from Italy. He was visiting in Italy. So stay safe. Don't go crazy and buy a lot of stuff. But normally for influenza season, I'd have some stuff at home. And don't isolate yourself, but be mindful with your hand washing where you are. No high fives, maybe elbow bumps, but no fist bumps, because that can also get you infected too. So when there was an Ebola outbreak a couple of years ago, I noticed that there are some documentaries where the people in Africa were just doing elbow bumps. I'm not sure if there was just that one documentary or if it was everybody doing that, but that makes sense. So hang in there. We'll make it through. Stay healthy. Another reason to stay healthy. So watch the rest of my videos. If this helped, give me a thumbs up. Otherwise, I'll see you at the next video.